The signal from space. John Carter sat alone in his small spaceship. He was a soldier, a fighter, a man who had seen many wars in space. But tonight was quiet. The stars outside his window looked cold and silent. He was far away from Earth. He was deep in alien space. Suddenly, the computer screen flashed red. Incoming signal. Unknown source. John leaned forward. "Who's sending this?" he asked, his voice low. The screen showed strange words. Not in English. Not in any alien language he knew. But somehow, he understood. Bride wanted. Human only. Come alone. John blinked. A bride. For him. This must be a joke, he said. But the signal came again. And again. He looked at the map. The signal came from a planet named Rivalry 9. It was far, cold, and marked as dangerous. John should have ignored it. But something inside him said, "Go." He pressed the buttons, changed course, and flew into the unknown. 3 days later, John's ship landed on Rivalry 9. The sky was purple. The air was thin but breathable. The ground sparkled with blue crystals. The place looked like a dream and a trap. As he stepped outside, he saw them. 3 alien women stood in front of a silver palace. They were tall, beautiful, and glowing with strange energy. The first one stepped forward. Her skin was gold, her eyes deep green. She wore silver armor. She looked strong, like a warrior. "I am Lyra," she said. "You are the chosen one. You must marry me." John raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me." Before he could speak more, the second woman stepped up. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes like ice. She wore long robes and had a crystal staff. "I am Vexa," she said. "My sister is too quick. You do not know the truth. Do not choose so fast." Then came the third. Her skin was dark purple, her eyes glowing white. She floated above the ground. She said nothing at first, only watched him. "That's Nera," Lyra said with a sigh. "She speaks only when needed." John looked at the 3 sisters. They looked powerful, strange, and not very friendly with each other. "What is this place?" John asked. "Why me?" Lyra smiled. "This planet needs a king. Long ago, a human ruled here. He brought peace, but he vanished. Now, we need a new human. Why not find another one? Only one can receive the signal. Only one can survive here." John looked around. The ground cracked in strange patterns. Energy moved under the surface. "What happens if I say no?" The 3 sisters looked at each other. Then, Vexa said coldly, "This world will fall into war. And maybe, your Earth too." John felt a chill. They took him to the palace. It was giant and empty. Walls made of glowing stone. Voices whispered in the halls. John was given a room with soft lights and a strange bed. That night, Lyra came to him. She stood at the door, holding a small black box. "This is for you," she said. "A weapon. Only you can use it." John opened the box. Inside was a strange object. Part gun, part sword, part tool. It pulsed with light. "Why give this to me?" "Because you will need it," Lyra said. "There are tests coming. Hard tests. My sisters will not play fair." "Why are you helping me?" She looked into his eyes. "Because I want you to survive. And because I want you to choose me." She left quickly, her golden hair moving like fire. John sat down, staring at the weapon. Later that night, he couldn't sleep. Shadows moved outside his window. He grabbed the weapon and stepped out. Vexa was waiting. "Did Lyra give you the weapon?" "Yes," John said. "Why?" "She's tricking you," Vexa said. "She wants power. She does not care about peace. And you do. I care about truth. Follow me. I will show you something." John followed her into the dark garden. Crystal flowers glowed under the stars. Strange sounds filled the air. They reached a hidden gate. Vexa opened it with her staff. Inside was a tunnel. Cold air came from below. "What's down there?" John asked. "Secrets," Vexa said. "The real reason you're here." John hesitated. He looked back at the palace, then stepped into the dark. The alien test begins. The tunnel was cold and silent. John followed Vexa deep into the darkness. The only light came from her glowing staff. Every step felt heavier, like the air itself didn't want him there. "Where are we going?" John asked. "To the truth," Vexa said. The walls around them were made of old stone and strange metal. Symbols were carved everywhere. John couldn't read them, but they felt ancient and angry. Finally, they entered a wide room filled with machines. Giant machines. Some were broken. Some were alive, pulsing with red light. And in the center of the room, a large round screen showed a map of Earth. "This room is forbidden," Vexa whispered. "Not even my sisters know I come here." "Why show me?" John asked. "Because you need to understand. This is not just about marriage. It's about control." John looked at the map. It showed cities on Earth and red lines pointing toward them. "What are these lines?" "Attack routes," Vexa said. "If one sister wins, she gains control of this world. And these weapons." John stared at the machines. War machines, old and ready. "So this whole bride thing is a lie?" "No," Vexa said softly. "But it's not about love. It's a test. A human must bond with one of us to take control. But if the wrong bond is made, everything burns." John felt sick. He turned away from the screen. "Why me? I didn't ask for this. The planet chose you. The old king's blood still calls to yours." "King." Vexa pointed to a sealed door. Behind it, John could hear a soft humming noise. "His story is locked inside. Maybe one day you'll see it. But first, you must survive the trials." Suddenly, the room shook. A loud voice echoed from the tunnel behind them. "Vexa." It was Lyra. Vexa's eyes went cold. "She followed us." "You betrayed the rules," Lyra shouted, stepping out of the dark. "This place is forbidden. And you broke the rules first," Vexa snapped. "You gave him the weapon." The two sisters glared at each other. Energy crackled in the air. John stepped between them. "Enough," he said. "You want me to survive. Then stop fighting and tell me what's going on." The room went quiet. Lyra looked at him. "The tests begin tomorrow. You must pass 3 trials. One of war, one of wisdom, and one of magic. What happens if I fail?" "You die," Vexa said simply. The next morning, John stood in an open arena. Above him, alien birds flew in circles. Thousands of small blue eyes watched from the palace towers. Lyra stood in the center of the arena, holding a long silver spear. "First trial. War," she said. "Survive me for 5 minutes." John held the weapon she gave him. It was still confusing. Part blade, part blaster, but it felt right in his hand. "What happens if I hurt you?" "You won't," Lyra said, smiling. "But try." The bell rang. She rushed forward like lightning. John barely blocked the first strike. Her spear moved like it was alive. He dodged, rolled, swung the weapon. The crowd gasped. But Lyra was too fast. Still, John didn't back down. He fought with everything he had. He wasn't just a warrior. He was human. And humans never quit. At the 4th minute, the ground cracked. Energy burst from John's weapon. A wave of power hit Lyra and knocked her back. The bell rang. John fell to one knee, breathing hard. Lyra stood up, smiling. "You passed." That night, John rested in the garden. Vexa joined him with a glass of glowing drink. "You did well," she said. "Most don't last 2 minutes." "I'm not most," John said. "No, you're not," Vexa said. "Tomorrow is my trial. And it's harder." "How?" "You'll see." She looked at him closely. Did you enjoy fighting Lyra? John shrugged. She's strong, but something tells me she enjoys the fight too much. She does. That's why she's dangerous. Vexa placed a small data crystal in John's hand. What's this? My test. Study it tonight. It may save your mind. She walked away before he could ask more. John looked at the crystal. It glowed blue in the moonlight. At midnight, John couldn't sleep. Again. He sat in the dark, holding the crystal. Suddenly, the shadows moved. A new figure appeared, floating, silent. It was the third sister, Naira. She didn't speak. She only watched him. Do you want to say something? John asked. Naira pointed to the sky. Above, stars were shifting, moving into a strange pattern. She whispered just 4 words. You are not ready. Then she vanished. Secrets in the dark. John didn't sleep that night. Naira's words echoed in his mind. You are not ready. But ready for what? He stared at the glowing data crystal in his hand, the one Vexa gave him. It was supposed to prepare him for her trial. But after Naira's warning, it felt like holding a snake. Dangerous, silent, waiting. At dawn, a soft knock came at his door. Vexa stood outside, dressed in a long white robe, her staff glowing softly. It's time, she said. John followed her through twisting palace halls. Walls whispered ancient voices. Lights shifted from blue to red, like the palace was watching, judging. They reached a tall chamber filled with mirrors and floating books. Glowing runes hovered in the air like dust. Trial of wisdom, Vexa said. Pass it, and the planet will recognize your mind. John stepped forward. A circle of light surrounded him. What do I do? Vexa raised her staff. Answer what cannot be seen. Solve what cannot be touched. Speak what cannot be heard. John frowned. What does that even mean? Vexa didn't reply. She vanished in a flash of white light. The mirrors around him began to move. They floated in the air, showing different images. In one mirror, John saw Earth. Cities burning. Ships falling. In another, he saw Valeri 9. The sisters fighting. The palace turning to dust. Then a third mirror showed himself, older, wearing a crown, standing between the 3 sisters. This is just illusion, John said. This isn't real. But the images didn't stop. Suddenly, a voice whispered from the walls. Truth is not always what you see. Wisdom is knowing who lies. Choose the right path, or be lost forever. The floor beneath John vanished. He fell, not through space, but through thought. He landed in a strange place. Black sky, glowing trees, floating rivers. Time didn't feel right here. He saw 3 doors made of light. One red, one green, one gold. Each door had a symbol above it. A war hammer, an open eye, and a spiral. A voice spoke again. You may choose only one. John stared at the doors. He thought of Lyra, war, strength, fire. He thought of Vexa, mind, mystery, ice. He thought of Naira, unknown, quiet, shadows. He closed his eyes. This was the trial. It wasn't about answering questions. It was about understanding truth. He stepped toward the green door, the eye. The door opened slowly. Inside was a simple room. A chair, a table. And sitting there was John, another version of him, older, wiser, tired. So, the older John said, you picked the hard path. What is this? John asked. This is you, if you survive, if you understand. John sat across from himself. What do I need to understand? The older John leaned forward. That this isn't about marriage, or power, or tests. This is about memory. Whose memory? Ours. The old John said, we've been here before. John froze. What? You are not the first. And you are not the last. You are a cycle. A key, the sisters. They are fragments of something broken. And you're the only one who can fix it. How? The old John pointed to his heart. Listen, not just to them, but to yourself. The room began to shake. The mirrors outside cracked. The floor broke. Wait, John shouted. What do I do next? Wake up, the old John said, fading. John gasped and opened his eyes. He was back in the mirror chamber. The mirrors were still, the lights calm. Vexa stood beside him, smiling gently. You passed, she said. Barely. John stood up, dizzy. What was all that? You saw a part of your soul, Vexa said. Not everyone can. What if I chose the wrong door? Then you would still be falling, Vexa said. That night, John sat outside the palace. The stars above Valeri 9 twisted in strange shapes. He looked up and saw her again. Naira. She appeared from the shadows, silent. You warned me, John said. She nodded. Why? She finally spoke, her voice quiet and cold. Because the others lie. Even Vexa. Especially Vexa. Naira reached into her robe and handed him a black cube. What's this? Memory. Yours. From before. John took the cube. It was heavy. Warm. Alive. What am I supposed to do with it? See. Then Naira vanished into the darkness again. John returned to his room and placed the cube on the table. It lit up and showed a hologram. He saw himself, but not now, not recent. This version of him wore golden armor, stood beside the sisters, who looked different, younger, less powerful. And then he heard the voice. His own voice. I gave you balance. One of war, one of wisdom, one of spirit. If you fight, the world dies. If you love one and reject the others, the stars will burn. The hologram ended. John sat there for a long time. His hand slowly touched the weapon beside his bed. He finally understood. He was not just a visitor. He was a key to an ancient promise. And that promise was breaking. The third sister's game. John woke to silence. No alarms. No knocking. No voices. Just silence. But something felt wrong. His room looked the same. Same walls. Same bed. Same soft lights. But the air was heavy, like it was waiting for something to begin. Then he saw her. Naira stood in the corner, motionless like a shadow. You didn't open the door, John said quietly. You never closed it, she replied. John sat up. What do you want? To show you what the others hide, she said. Before he could speak again, the walls of the room melted, literally melted into light, and the world around him changed. He was no longer in the palace. John stood in a wide empty desert. Dark sand, red sky, 3 suns above. Naira floated in front of him. What is this place? Memory, she said, but not yours. She raised a hand. The desert shifted. Suddenly, the ground cracked open. Out of it rose hundreds of statues, tall stone figures, all wearing the same face. His face. Each one had different armor. Some carried books. Some carried swords. Others wore crowns. John stared in horror. What is this? He asked again, more firmly. The forgotten versions of you, Naira said. The ones who failed. John walked between the statues. Many were broken, shattered, buried in sand. How many times has this happened? Enough, she said. You were not always a soldier. Sometimes you were a king, a servant, a teacher, a killer. John turned. Why show me this now? Naira's voice dropped to a whisper. Because they want you to choose one of them. Again and again. The cycle never ends. The other sisters. Yes, they are not just my sisters. They are pieces of something broken. They don't remember what they were, but I do. John stepped closer. And what were they? Naira stared at him. One soul, long ago, divided into three, to protect the planet, to control its power. But something went wrong. She pointed at the statues again. The world changed again. John now stood inside a huge cathedral. Stars floated above like lamps. The walls were made of energy. Naira walked past glowing pillars and whispered, "This is where the last union failed." John saw a hologram replaying. 3 sisters arguing. 1 human kneeling. It ended in fire. "They chose him," Naira said. "And he chose only one. What happened to him?" "Look around," she said. John turned. The same man's image, his image, was burned into the wall like a shadow after an explosion. He was erased. John clenched his fists. "Then what's the answer?" he asked. "If choosing one causes destruction, what do I do?" Naira slowly turned to face him. "You must break the cycle." "How?" "By not choosing at all." John frowned. "But if I don't choose, won't the planet fall into war?" "Yes," Naira said, "unless you unlock the 4th path." "There's a 4th. Naira raised her hand. The cathedral cracked. A hidden door appeared beneath the floor, glowing in pure white light. "What's down there?" "The truth," she said, "but you must go alone." John looked down at the glowing door. "Will I come back?" Naira's eyes softened for the first time. "If you are still human, yes." He stepped through the door. Instantly, he was somewhere else. Not space, not memory, not even time. Just white light and a voice. His own voice. "You were never meant to pick between them. You were meant to unite them. But not with love, not with power, with something older." John whispered, "What?" "Sacrifice." A pedestal appeared before him. On it sat a small sphere, glowing, alive. "This is the world core," the voice said. "Whoever touches it becomes the bond. You will not rule. You will not live as before. You will become the balance." John stepped closer. The sphere pulsed with warmth, like a heartbeat. He reached out, then stopped. "If I do this, I lose myself. You become more than one, and less than one. But the world survives." He pulled his hand back. "Not yet," he said. The light dimmed. The door opened behind him. And Naira waited. "You didn't take it," she said. "Not yet," John said. "I need to see what they'll do next." Naira nodded. "You're learning." Back at the palace, Lyra and Vexa stood in the throne room, arguing. "He failed your test," Lyra said. "He was gone all day." "He didn't fail," Vexa replied. "He just walked a different path. He is meant to choose one of us." "Or none of us," said a soft voice. They turned. John entered the room. His face had changed, older, wiser, like someone who had seen beyond the surface. "I want to speak to both of you," John said. "Why?" Lyra asked. "Because I know the truth now." Vexa stepped forward, and John looked between them. "You are not enemies. You are broken pieces of the same soul." The room fell silent. The ground trembled. The palace lights dimmed. And far above, the sky began to turn red. War of the Sisters. The sky above Valeri 9 turned red. Not with sunlight, but with warning. A storm of fire and energy swirled above the palace. Thunder without sound. Lightning without light. John stood in the center of the great hall, between Vexa and Lyra. Naira watched silently from the shadows, her eyes glowing white. "You both need to stop," John said firmly. Lyra stepped forward. "You speak like a king, but you haven't chosen a queen." "Because that choice is a lie," he replied. "I've seen the past. I've seen the statues. I've seen the cycle." Vexa frowned. "You went into the mind void." John nodded. "Naira showed me the forgotten paths. And something deeper, something real." Naira slowly walked toward them. For the first time, she spoke with strength. "You are all playing a game that no longer matters. Lyra narrowed her eyes. You broke the old rule. You interfered before the final trial. Naira raised her hand. And you gave him weapons. Are we counting sins now? Energy crackled in the room. The sisters faced one another, not as family, but as rivals. John felt the planet tremble under his boots. Stop this, he said. If you fight, the planet dies. Lyra didn't listen. He was mine to win, mine to fight beside, mine to choose. No one owns him, Vexa snapped. And if he was wise, he'd choose balance, not battle. Enough, Lyra roared. She pulled her silver spear from her back. Fire burned in her eyes. If I can't win with words, I'll win with war. She attacked. The throne room exploded into chaos. John ducked as a blast of fire struck a pillar. Stone and light fell from above. Vexa raised her staff and blocked the next strike. A wall of ice formed between her and Lyra. You always choose rage, Vexa shouted. Rage kept us alive. Lyra answered. Naira stood still, watching. John crawled to safety, heart pounding. He knew this wasn't a test anymore. This was real. Sisters who were once whole, now tearing each other apart. A memory flashed in his mind, the hologram in the desert, the burned shadow of the last human who chose wrong. He wouldn't let that happen again. Outside the palace, the skies boiled. The planet itself responded to the battle inside. Deep under the surface, old machines woke up. Red eyes blinked in the dark. Ancient defense systems powered on, forgotten by time, but never truly dead. They began scanning for danger. And they found it, inside the palace. John ran through the burning halls. He had to reach the central chamber, the room beneath the palace. The one with the old skeleton. The one where the truth lived. As he entered, the room was already glowing. The skeleton still sat on the throne. The crown on its head pulsed with light. John approached slowly. You were me, he whispered. Or, I was you. He touched the armrest of the throne. Instantly, light surrounded him. The walls shifted. Voices filled the air, old and broken. Unity was the law. Division was the fall. You were made to hold the pieces together, not to choose one, but to become all. John's eyes widened. He understood now. He wasn't supposed to pick a bride. He was supposed to become a bridge. Behind him, the sisters' battle reached the chamber. Lyra crashed through the door, her armor scorched, her spear glowing red-hot. Vexa followed, bleeding light, eyes full of fury. Naira appeared last, quiet as a breath. John stepped between them. Stop, he shouted. They didn't, until the throne began to rise. The skeleton inside it stood up, slowly, its bones glowing with ancient fire. The crown floated into the air, and then shattered. The energy flew toward John. He screamed. It entered his chest. And then, silence. When John opened his eyes, he saw everything differently. He saw the sisters, not as three, but as one. He saw their past, how they were born from a single soul, split by the planet's core to guard its power. He saw how each sister became obsessed with her role. Lyra with strength, Vexa with wisdom, Naira with spirit. And he saw himself, not a king, not a hero, but a missing part, the anchor, the one who could bring them together. His voice changed, deeper, calm, strong. You do not need to fight. You were never meant to rule alone. The sisters looked at him with wide eyes. What have you become? Vexa asked. Not a ruler, John said. A mirror of who you were, and who you can be again. Lyra lowered her spear. Naira stepped forward. You touched the core, she said. I became the core, John replied. Above them, the storm began to fade. The machines below returned to sleep. The ground calmed. Hours later, the four of them stood on the palace tower. The stars above Valeri 9 were calm again. blue and gold. Quiet. John looked at the sisters. "I'm not staying," he said. "Earth needs me too." "Then what now?" Vexa asked. "You continue," he said. "Not as rivals. As one." "What if we forget again?" Naira asked. John smiled softly. "Then send the signal, and maybe I'll come back." As he walked to his ship, the palace behind him began to shift. Its towers combined. The throne split into 3 seats, and the red sky turned gold. The human king. The stars above Valere 9 had never been so calm. For the first time in centuries, the skies were quiet. The sisters stood in peace, and the storms had ended. But peace was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning of truth. John sat alone inside the palace's oldest room. A hidden vault beneath the central tower had opened when he touched the core. No one had entered for 1,000 years. Now, the door stood open behind him. Cold air blew from within. Inside, it was dark, but not empty. In the center of the room stood a single ancient hologram device, glowing faint blue. He stepped forward. It activated on its own. A figure appeared. Tall, proud, human. His face looked like Joan's, but older, more scared, more tired. The figure spoke in a strong, deep voice. "If you are seeing this, it means you passed the trials." John's heart pounded. This was no normal message. This was from the first one, the human king of Valere 9. "My name was Arlen Carter. I came here long before Earth knew the stars. I was a soldier, a leader, a fool." John stared in silence. His last name, Carter. It couldn't be a coincidence. This planet was broken when I arrived. War between the sisters, fire in the skies. But I didn't come to rule. I came to stop the fire. Images flashed behind Arlen. Explosions, battles, alien ships crashing into burning cities. The planet chose me, just like it chose you, and I made a choice, not to take one sister, but to become their bond, their center, their memory. John remembered the voice in the core, not a ruler, a mirror. I gave myself to the world core. I became something more, and less. I lived for centuries, until the connection faded, and they forgot. John clenched his jaw. If you're watching this, then the sisters are lost again, and you are their final chance. The message flickered. Arlen's face became blurred. Listen closely. The bond can be broken. Time and memory will eat it away. If they begin to fight again, the planet will defend itself, and it will wipe them all out. Unless you complete what I could not. John stepped closer. What does that mean? The last line of the message appeared as text, glowing red. Restore the unity, or leave them behind. Hours later, John walked through the palace garden with Vexa. He looked like you, she said quietly. John nodded. Maybe he was my ancestor. Or maybe your past self, Vexa whispered. He looked at her. You believe that? This planet doesn't follow normal time, Vexa said. Dreams here come from the future. Memories come from the stars. Nothing is straight. John didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to deny it. But deep inside, he felt the truth. The first human king wasn't just history. He was part of him. That night, Lyra invited John to the training arena. She held 2 wooden staffs, not weapons of war. No powers, she said. Just you and me. What's the lesson? John asked, smiling. To see what kind of warrior you are when everything is quiet. They sparred under the stars, laughing, breathing, sweating. Not as enemies, not even as rivals, as partners. When they stopped, Lyra looked at him for a long time. You're not like the others we waited for, she said. I'm not like the one you remember. We never remembered him, she admitted. Just the pain of losing something. Someone. Later, John found Naira standing in the memory chamber. The room filled with old mirrors and light fragments. She was watching an image of the three sisters from long ago. They were laughing, dancing, whole. Was this real? John asked. Yes, Naira whispered. Before the split, before the crown, we were one mind, one voice, one soul. Do you want that back? We can't go back, she said, but we can become something new. She turned to face him. But only if you stay. John's chest grew tight. He looked around the glowing chamber. Its ship was still ready. Earth still waited. But something inside him knew. Leaving meant ending the bond forever. The next morning, the sisters gathered one final time. They stood at the world core. The same sphere John had seen before. Still glowing. Still waiting. You must choose, Vexa said. Not between us, but between roles. John stood silent. You can stay, Lyra said, and become our balance. Or leave, Naira added, and we will face the future without you. John stepped forward. He touched the core. The lights changed. He didn't feel pain this time, only peace. The core rose into the sky. The palace responded. Lights connected between the three thrones. Old energy flowed through the halls. The planet itself sighed. John opened his eyes. His voice echoed with the planet's voice. I am not your king, he said. I am your reminder, your memory, your friend. The sisters stood together, no longer separate. Then we are not three, they said in one voice. We are one. And then, silence. Not empty. Complete. A week later, John stood near his ship, ready to leave. The sisters joined him at the landing pad. You made us whole, Vexa said. You chose truth over power, said Lyra. You became the king who didn't need a crown, Naira whispered. John smiled. Just don't start fighting again. If we forget, Lyra said, we'll call you. I'll answer, John said. He stepped onto his ship. The door closed. The engines lit, and he flew toward the stars. But deep in his chest, a soft voice remained, his own, and someone else's. This isn't the end. One choice to save all. Space was quiet. John Carter sat alone in his ship, staring out into the stars. Behind him, Rivalry 9 was just a bright blue dot now. Peaceful, alive, whole. Ahead of him was Earth. Home. But something felt unfinished. The ship's air beeped. Incoming message. John leaned forward. But there was no sound, just a symbol. 3 circles, connected in a triangle. The same symbol carved into the old throne. The same mark glowing on the world core. John frowned. What now? Suddenly, his ship stopped. Not by his command. Not by the AI. By something deeper. Outside the window, space twisted. Colors swirled. Stars bent like water. John had entered something beyond space. A voice echoed. Not human. Not alien. You passed the test. But the game is not over. John stood up. Who's speaking? We are the architects. The first minds. The builders of balance. What do you want? A choice. The stars vanished. John stood in a white room with no walls. No ceiling. No sound. In front of him floated 2 images. On the left, Earth. Beautiful, but full of conflict. War, fear, hunger. On the right, Rivalry 9, newly balanced, glowing, full of quiet harmony. The voice spoke again. You may save only one. John's heart froze. What do you mean? Your connection to the world core was stronger than expected. It gave you power, knowledge, but it also gave you a link to the universal balance. Now, the balance must be tested again. Save Earth, and Rivalry 9 loses its memory. The sisters forget their unity. The cycle begins again. Save Rivalry 9, and Earth will fall. Wars will grow. Billions may die. John took a step back. That's not fair. Balance is never fair. It is only true. He clenched his fists. Why can't I save both? Because the universe demands cost. Always. John dropped to his knees. He had fought monsters, survived illusions, united broken souls. And now, this. There must be another way, he whispered. The images floated closer. He saw Earth again, his city, his family, children playing under blue skies. He heard laughter, music, wind. Then Valere 9, the sisters smiling together, a palace alive, stars dancing above quiet gardens. Both worlds were worth saving. Both needed him. And yet, he could not have both. John stood. He took a deep breath and made a choice. He opened his eyes back inside his ship. The stars were normal again. The message symbol was gone, but something had changed. His hand glowed faint gold, same color as the world core. He looked down and whispered, "Thank you." The ship turned toward Earth. He was going home, but not empty. He had made the choice, and he was ready to live with it. 3 months later, Earth was still here. Damaged, struggling, divided, but alive. And something had changed. Wars slowed. Leaders paused. Dreams were shared across the planet. Dreams of 3 sisters, a burning planet, and a human who became light. No one knew where the dreams came from, but they made people think, act different, talk more, fight less. John never told anyone what happened, but every night he walked outside and looked at the stars. One blue star always shined brighter. Valere 9. It was fading, but still alive. Back on Valere 9, the sisters stood together in the old garden. They no longer remembered the full truth, but they remembered him. His face, his voice, his choice. "Do you think he's still out there?" Lyra asked. "Yes," Vexa said softly. "Watching. Waiting," Naira added. A small light floated through the air. It glowed gold and warm. The planet was dimmer, but still in balance. Because once, someone chose love without choosing a person, peace without needing a crown, memory without needing reward. In the farthest part of the galaxy, a spark waited in the dark. It whispered to the stars, "If the balance ever breaks again, I will return." The end.